Title 42 came to an end. Listen, we already were having a border crisis that was overrun with Title 42 in place.
Every state is a border state, but the surge impact on the border states, our border states, Texas, Arizona, those states, is dramatic.
CBP has about 25,000 migrants in custody as of this morning.
Yes, so this is
that is the problem without having Title 42 is we're having to put these people into
jail,
into custody.
Yeah, but they don't call it jail, but effectively it is.
You cannot immediately expel them. So if you're already at 25,000 in a few hours, okay, how many people are we going to have in CBP custody before they have to just start letting them out?
Not many more.
Yeah, I mean, you can't build enough buildings to hold 200,000 people.
Here's the problem that we have is there was no plan in place. Title 42 expired because the COVID pandemic was over with. Okay, well, then you could have had an executive order that gave a priority on how you'll deal with this. Priority discretion is constitutional under the Article 2 powers, and it certainly would have been appropriate. It did not happen. Mayorkas says it's going to be chaotic down there. The president said it's going to be chaotic down there. The problem in the chaos is not the 25,000 people that are in custody. It's the 25,000 people that aren't and where they are and what they're up to and the sex trafficking and the drug cartels.
Bill Haggard, he's had his legislation voted down 4 times by Democrats that would extend Title 42 power to the Biden administration. They would declare that the pandemic is over, but there's a fentanyl epidemic since it's the number one killer of Americans between the ages of 18 to 45. And you'd think if the Democrats were saying, oh, it's going to be a little chaotic, we've lost this Title 42 power, so we'd like this, right? I mean, it shouldn't be partisan. Protecting American lives, giving you that power. They voted against it.
Senator Hagerty had a bill that would have given the Biden administration the authority because of the fentanyl epidemic in this country to take action. Sex trafficking and human trafficking would have been enough. Frankly, the terrorism situation would have been enough to do that.
When they're given an opportunity to improve the situation, they will not. And it's not because they have no plan. It's because their plan is something they can't tell you. They can't go up and tell you. They cannot say from the podium, our plan is to allow this chaos, allow these children to die, allow the human trafficking, the drug trafficking, and all these Americans to get killed and young girls being caught into sex trafficking, because long term, we think we'll be able to legalize these folks, and they'll be thankful to Democrats for allowing them to cross the border, so we'll get their votes. But they can't say that from the podium.
You can solve this much the way we did it. It takes lots of energy. It takes real focus and determination. You go back to remain in Mexico. Essentially, you tell the Mexican government, we're sending people back. That has 2 things that work in its favor. First, you send them back. Second, folks who are thinking about making this horrible trip across the Mexican desert to be victimized by these coyotes will say, nope, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to take that risk. I'm not going to get into the United States, essentially turning off the magnet. The second piece is you got to support these men and women of the CBP. If you get that piece wrong, it is not possible to have a safe and sovereign United States of America. And the Biden administration has whiffed on both of those. They did so knowingly. They knew the day they ripped these Band-Aids off, this was what we'd have. And we have not only chaos, but a gap in American security that is absolutely staggering.
If you're going to flood the system with hundreds of thousands of people, well, then give them an identification card. I mean, this is simple stuff. Give them an identification card so when they do work, they're paying taxes and they can pay for their family so they can get medical care. That's why this whole thing's out of control. So we don't have a stop at the border and then we just let people in who have to hide in the shadows while they're in, and it's our fault they're in the first place illegally.
They listen to the Biden administration. They say, oh, it seems like this is a good time to come because they're not going to expel us. They're going to let us into the country. And you could take that as someone who might not speak English and say, well, if they're letting us into the country, that means they're letting us get the benefits of being in the country, which means being able to work, being able to receive social services, being able to send your kids to school, medical care, all these different things. And by the way, in a lot of cities, that is happening. And those institutions are either closing, I mean, they are literally shutting down hospitals because hospitals cannot afford to take so many people who don't have any insurance, which is these illegal immigrants, that they still treat, but then it overruns the system, so they're not making any money to keep their lights on.
That is the fundamental problem with all of this in reality, is the system can't handle it. People are suffering. They're suffering when they're coming here. They're being abused in the entire system. But if we don't protect our borders, we're going to lose control of the country. I mean, it's that simple.